If you like my videos, please like and subscribe. It's one of the only ways, now that the politicians and the media are gone, that we can keep shining a light on our little town of East Palestine, Ohio. And please consider joining our Facebook group, East Palestine Off the Rails. Get the truth from the... So, check me out on Rumble, Phoenix on the Sword. That is Phoenix on the Sword on Rumble to get the truth. Thank you so much for caring. This is Shirley Lambright. She is a patient. I didn't send her out for her blood work. Her PCP did. But first of all, let's talk a little bit about who she is and where she lives. And she doesn't live right in East Palestine. She lives right across the border in, that's Darlington where you live, right?
It's Darlington Township.
Okay.
Actually, Enon Valley address, but...
Okay, how far do you estimate you are from the...
Well, it depends on what map that you use, because the Pennsylvania map, we are right on the 1 mile cusp. And if you look at the map that we saw first in Ohio, it's the same thing. But when I had gone to the church in New Waterford, it was a different map. So then I didn't fall even in the 2 mile radius. And
so you're about a mile away.
Yes.
But how on a map would you be 2 miles away? How does that work?
It changed. The map changed. I was told that the original map, the original radius was from the crash site, and then when they did the burn, that moved because of where they burnt was a different area, or up the tracks.
I'm not even sure what that means.
That's what I was told. And I have pictures of it, and I didn't understand because, I mean, if a map is a map, if you're a mile away, you're a mile away. It doesn't change. It didn't change where I live from when the crash or the burn. So
the actual land didn't change. The geography didn't change.
True. Yeah. We actually live straight down the tracks. Like if you were coming towards Enon, we're just right into Pennsylvania. So like a bird's eye view, it would be probably less than a mile.
Okay.
You know.
So what maybe a lot of people that aren't from the area don't know is that when they did the burn, they wanted to do it earlier, and I can't remember why they put it off for a little bit. I don't know if you can remember, but they said the earlier we do it in the morning, because the inversion, when the smoke stops rising and spreads out and then starts dropping, the inversion height would be much higher if they did it in the morning so that the smoke had a chance to rise. But I think by the time they burned, it was around 3 p.m. And it hung, there was absolutely no wind. I remember when the smoke went off, it was 0 wind. And it hung in the air straight over Palestine and spread out for, I think until, was it 5 or 6 o'clock? And then the wind started blowing and it blew right over her house, right over my office, right into Enon and Darlington and New Galley, Pennsylvania. And which they've kind of been, you don't hear, when you search East Palestine now, millions of things come up. If you would search Darlington or Enon Valley or New Galley, you may not find much. But they actually got the brunt of the smoke and the fallout right after the accident. So,
well, to start with, when the train derailed, we knew nothing. We were not warned anything. We didn't get anything. We heard by friends that are firefighters that were treating a fire. We didn't even know, what it was or anything. You could see it from our second story. We live next to a plant that builds modular homes. And so it was in the way, but I went to the second story and you could see a glow, but you couldn't tell what it was. So we didn't know. We went to sleep. We didn't know until the next day when we got up and there was an odor and it smelled like, my husband said something electrical burning. I thought it was more of a sweet or a different odor, but we didn't even know anything at that point. And we weren't evacuated. No one came to our door. You hear of everybody talking about somebody coming to their door. We saw no one. And then when it came to the burn, we only got a notice that we needed to evacuate 15 minutes before they did the burn.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even have time to put your shoes on, get your coat on, get out the door.
Yeah. So I was thinking the other day at noon here in Palestine, every day at noon a siren goes off, and tells us it's lunchtime or whatever. When we were kids, I remember they used to do that in Chippewa. It just goes off at noon. And you wonder why something couldn't have been done like that. Because you're talking about them not telling us things. I went to work, so we did the same thing. My wife and I, we went to bed, and she actually started falling asleep, and I was like on my phone just looking at social media. And I'm like, wait a second, what is going on here? There's like a derailment and a huge fire. This was probably around 11 o'clock at night.
In your own town?
Yeah, just 2 miles down the road. I remember stopping right at near the crash site at the marathon to buy a lottery ticket about 7 o'clock. I got up, she went back to bed, I got up and watched TV for a bit. I actually went to Darlington because that's where my office is, and we could smell it. The whole staff, we could smell it. And meanwhile, we're probably breathing in vinyl chloride fumes. And around noon, Saturdays I work from 9 to noon. Around noon, one of the firefighters came in because I treat a lot of the first responders, just as normally.
As patients,
yes.
Yeah.
So he came in, and I must have heard this rumblings through patients, or maybe I saw it late at night when I was watching the news, and maybe there were rumors of chemicals. And I said to this guy then, and keep in mind this was Saturday morning, we weren't informed until Sunday night that there was vinyl chloride burning. This was Saturday morning, and I said, hey, I heard the rumor there might be some vinyl chloride or something on that train. And he said almost these exact words, he said, Doc, that vinyl chloride is the least you have to worry about. There are so many chemicals on that train.
Oh my.
That is Saturday morning, and we weren't told till Sunday night that there was any kind of chemical burning on that train. So you were in your home breathing that stuff in,
Absolutely.
not even knowing anything.
Not knowing. And we were home all weekend.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't a weekend, we had things to do.
And that's not just from the, what they call the controlled burn or what I call the chemical bomb. That's from the very first time the initial Friday night when it was on fire.
So my husband went down and he changed the filter in the furnace, and it's usually like a tan color. This is gray. So we have a HEPA filter on our thing because I'm very, very allergic to things. So, we have cats and we keep that HEPA filter on there. Well, he changed it and he was like, you're not going to believe how much stuff is on there. And there was like a little bit of dusting in the house, but not much. But, and that's when everything seemed to start to go bad.
And what do you mean by that? And by the way, first, we did the same thing in Darlington, our filters, and they're black. They're actually black. So you put yours in plastic bags?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what do you mean by things started to go wrong?
Just, I noticed, like I said, I am allergic to a lot of things, but I noticed that, like my lips were burning and then, my throat a little bit, but more the headache, and I'm not a person that gets a headache very often. When I do, you take something, lay down or whatever. I've pretty much had the same headache since that day. And I've been to the doctor and I've been to the emergency room. I've been to, done everything I could and really still today I have it. So
this was awesome. Actually, Shirley's one of the ones I call like a miracle patient. When did I met you before the derailment?
It was in January.
I met you in January.
The first week of January.
So I've treated your daughter, treated your son-in-law. I think you said maybe your daughter-in-law was saying to ask you to get in for a long time.
Oh yeah, she has.
And you came to me it was just horrible leg pain, correct? That you've had for how many years?
Yes, I've dealt with restless leg, but in the last probably like November and December, it got to the point where even my feet, I couldn't even walk. I would work and I wouldn't be able to get to my car because my feet hurt so bad. It was like I had nothing below the knees down, like I had no feeling, and they thought I have arthritis. So I went through the whole rheumatoid arthritis and everything. And when I was at the rheumatoid arthritis doctor, he said, you have a slight curve in the base of your back. And I said, well, what does that have anything to do with it? And he said, oh, I don't think so. He said, we'll treat you for the arthritis. Well, then it started me thinking, and then that daughter in my ears going, Dr. Try, okay. All right, so I made an appointment. And after one appointment, yes, I had no pain in my feet.
And you've been good ever since.
I've been good ever since.
This is not a commercial for me. What I'm saying.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But
so
Amazing.
Awesome. So here's my point. There's so much to learn from this. If Shirley was some kind of hypochondriac, when I treated her, her symptoms went away, and she told me they went away right away. And she was so happy. And she's continued to see me to keep healing the spine, to get it strong so it stays there.
3 days a week.
Yeah, but she's...
The whole of January,
yes.
I saw you.
And she's not somebody that kept saying, that denied her legs stopped hurting. Once she had relief, she let me know, and her pain was gone. But the other thing was that, I'll have to check my records, but I don't think there's ever any record of her telling me that you had headaches. I'm not sure about that, but I don't remember you coming in initially with headaches. I always remembered you as really happy and joking around. And then you started coming in, and I apologize, but your eyes would look puffy. It looked like you didn't sleep all night after the derailment. And you seemed like you would come moping in, and you would tell me that you had these headaches that were they were nonstop. I mean, they just went like 24 hours, correct?
Yes, and wouldn't go away.
Yeah, so from what I remember, you had no headaches prior to me treating you.
No. And then I had mouth sores.
Or prior to the derailment.
Yeah, and I had mouth sores. And, you know, these are things when you're allergic to a lot of things, you keep an eye on and you notice them. Well, it just kept building up, like the diarrhea, you know, strong urine, and what else? Metal taste in your mouth sometimes. The lips were burning. I would have like blisters in my nasal passage, and if I blew my nose, not blood came out, but water came out. And so I called my doctor.
That's something that I forgot and we'll go back to you calling your doctor. But that's something I never mentioned. When I started getting ill after the creek, water would just run out of my nose. I don't know what that was. There was no mucus to it. It was like your bottled water was coming out of my nose. And I had forgotten about that.
And that's what it was, basically, was just, you know, you could tell, like I would blow my nose and then it would run out. But you could see up in my nose that there was what was left of a blister. Like when you pop a blister and there's the skin that's left, that was in my nose. You could see it. I mean, it was easy to see. My husband looked, I looked. But anyway.
Before you get to go into your doctor, I do remember they set up a clinic next to my office. And it was a help center. The EPA was there. There were tables you could go to, and you could talk to like a pastor or for counseling, which is really nice. They also, I called it the petting zoo because they had a dog that you could pet. Because after a chemical bomb goes off in your town, you need to go pet a dog. But, you know, we all love dogs. But I remember you going there. And,
yes.
and right, didn't you tell them and show them the blisters? And were they concerned? And
No,
maybe
not
they were.
At all. They weren't. When I had gone to my doctor before then, but
okay.
I went to this clinic because they suggested to go there. You know, they were, and I even wrote to Jim Marshall, our state representative, and he was the one that would help get it together. So I went, my husband and I, and he's seeing one of the physicians on one side and I'm on the other side, and they're taking our blood pressure and everything, and they keep talking about our blood pressure being high, but she wasn't even concerned about my symptoms. I would say, you know, I have this headache, and she'd say, where? And I would tell her, and she would say, well, that's allergies. February. Okay, I'm not sure that I've had allergies this bad in February, but okay. So then I said to her, I said, well, I have blisters in my mouth. She never looked in my mouth. I said, I have blisters in my nasal passage. You know, the thing that they use to look in your ear. It's a long thing on a, well, you know what that is. But anyway, she looked in my nose with that, and she said she didn't see anything, but as soon as she put it in there, she broke the blisters and the water came down. So she handed me a tissue. And I said, well, what is that? And she said, oh, that's just nasal congestion. And I'm like, but you saw the blisters. You said, she goes, oh yeah, I see them. But passed me off as I was having an allergy season. And I mean, I know what an allergy season is.
And that's the same, and I think there's still one here now, where they're just setting up a permanent clinic. And there's so much distrust among the citizens here because basically the same thing.
And when my husband and I left there, well, when he came out, the doctor didn't even ask him anything as far as his symptoms. He was more worried about his blood pressure. And my husband said, well, my blood pressure's going to be up because I'm anxious, angry, and you're not listening to me. And they just sent us away. It really, truly, I'm sorry, was a joke.
So then what about your doctor's visit?
My first doctor's visit, I called and asked for an appointment, and they couldn't get me in. So they suggested I went to Medic Express. So I did. The woman there kind of mocked me because I said I've had the worst headache I've ever had. And she's like, well, then you need to be treated. And I'm like, okay, you don't need to be that way. I just am saying that, so it was to the point where I'm having a hard time focusing my eyes and everything. So she made me sign a release that my husband would pick me up and take me to the ER for scanning. So I went to the ER and had CAT scan and blood work. And those all came back okay. And they just, they gave me IV Tylenol, but it wasn't strong enough to make it go down. So then they gave me ibuprofen, strong. She said it was super ibuprofen. And it did make the headache go down some. It never went away completely. But they sent me home saying, I'm sorry, we don't know what we're dealing with. We haven't been alerted to what chemicals are out there. You're not the first one that has been here for Beaver County. So then I went home. And then the headaches didn't go away. I ended up going back to my PCP. And that's when she said, well, we're going to do, this was March 9th on my birthday, I remember. She said, well, we're going to do a chest x-ray, which it came back okay. And she said, we're going to do a urinalysis. So that's when they did it and sent it away.
That's awesome that she did that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of patients, they can't get those. So then you also, this reminds me of something because you were coming in at that time and this is happening to a lot of people here. You actually questioned yourself. You said, I don't know. And I did too, but was maybe, and partially maybe some stress. I would imagine some stress adds to it, but you were saying, somebody told you that maybe you're just thinking too much. And I remember having this discussion with you. And then you and your husband went away for the weekend. And I think you did feel a little better, possibly.
Yeah.
You came back hopeful, but then it wasn't long before the headaches returned.
That day.
Can you talk about that? And then we'll...
it was our anniversary. So we had already planned on going away. And, we had a lot of things planned. We were going to go to a winery and everything. We ended up not doing anything. We went to the hotel and we slept. We just rested. It was like, it was in a different world almost. Like it just was a relief not to, that's when we realized it. It's either in our home or in the air outside.
Mm-hmm.
So, and my husband, he's not inside all the time. He's outside all the time. He likes to be in the garage. We just moved to the homestead, well, the farm was his family's, and we've redone the house. And when we sold our house that is in Darlington near your practice, we built a garage, huge, big garage. He's so proud of it.
It's heaven.
And, yeah.
It's a guy's heaven.
It is. It's 4 stalls or 5 stalls anyway. But he's outside most of the time, and he would come in, and he said he was changing the brakes on the truck, and he had to get up and come in because he felt dizzy. Well, first he had to sit for a while before he could get his balance and get, his wits about him. And he said he came in and he said he just felt like he was going to throw up and he was nauseous. And then later that day, his tongue was bleeding on the side.
Wow. Where
I have the blisters all over, he just had it on the side.
Yeah. And how often does he come and tell you his tongue is bleeding?
Never. He's never. And I'm the one with the allergies. I'm the one that has all the symptoms. He doesn't. He's just a farm boy, and he's just, he's out there. He loves being outside, but it seems like when he's outside is when he has the issues too. And then he comes in and he has the issues. But I called around to see if I could get someone to come clean our house. This was early on when we found out.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that.
Yeah. I called a trust, I don't want to say their name because I don't want them, to feel bad, but I've used them before. They came and they did our whole house. It was great. Like they took things out of the house, took them to their facility, cleaned them, and brought them back. Plus cleaned the house. And I called them. I trust them, and they were not able to accommodate us. They were afraid. They didn't know what the chemicals were, so they couldn't liability-wise take that on. And I agree, and I admire that they were upfront with me. But I called 3 and 4 other places that would not even talk to me when I told them where we lived and what was going on. They're like, "We're sorry, we can't." No one knew what chemicals were out there, so they not going to bring it into their facility. So
have you since had your house cleaned?
I have just cleaned it myself.
Okay.
I've had a lady come in and she's helped me. And even then, what do you clean it with?
Nobody knows. We don't know.
If you use Clorox, is Clorox gonna, you see things that react with each other. I mean, so we just did the best we could. We cleaned with Clorox. We cleaned with bottled water. We didn't use any of the water at home. So, but even now, I don't think it's clean.
So to this point, I don't know anybody that has had in East Palestine, Darlington, Enon Valley. There should be a whole crew from the government. Like it should look like ants on an anthill here, where they are cleaning our homes, they're scrubbing our ducts. I don't know anybody that's had anything like that done from either the government or the EP. I don't know who would do that, but somebody should be doing that. I think it would just be something that should be done. That's common sense.
Well, we've had to clean our own house, and we're not cleaners. I mean, we don't know if we got it out. Apparently not, because...
Yeah, so March 9th, you had your blood work done on your birthday.
I just got it back this past week.
Yes, so when I send people for vinyl chloride, I want to talk about that too. So the people that didn't want vinyl chloride testing initially, we'd get their blood work back right away. And I'd say, why is this guy and his wife and this person, I haven't got their blood results back yet. And it takes about 3 to 4 weeks.
It did. It took like a month.
And so you can let everybody know.
It came back, I was told that it was positive.
Yeah, positive for vinyl chloride metabolites.
And this was a trusted company. I mean...
it's not only a trusted, it's one of the largest labs in the United States. But that lab doesn't even do the actual testing. They send it to another place. I may have this wrong. I think it's NMS Laboratories they send it to. I actually talked with one of the head doctors that works for Quest Laboratories. He called me back and we had a long discussion. So that's a pretty specialized test. I don't think you're going to find a more credible lab that's doing the testing. And you just don't test positive for vinyl chloride walking around your country home. 1 mile from where this big chemical bomb went off.
But even if I was 2 miles from there, if there was any kind of chemical in your system, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, it's very scary.
So now you're staying, as soon as you were debating leaving before, but you didn't. Sometimes your mind plays tricks on you. Should I leave? Should we stay? Is this safe or is it not safe? Are these headaches from something else? Now that you know where your ailments are coming from, what did you do then?
We found out on Monday, and I got a hotel room. We've been staying in a hotel since. And I had coughing. I coughed all the time, which I meant to say that too, but I haven't really coughed since we've been at the hotel. I do have, my mouth sores are still healing. The headache has never gone away. I've never even imagined having a headache for this long. So we decided to come today here, and I have an appointment with a specialist that deals with occupational medicine. He's dealt with one person that has had a vinyl chloride exposure, and that's the only reason he took me. There is nobody in the area. I mean, my insurance company called every doctor that was listed. But going back, I have a book I keep track. I'm not good at remembering things. So I have a notebook, and I wrote down from probably February 22nd, every day that I had a headache, and every day that went on, and every person that I talked to. So we get this vinyl chloride back, and so I call the Department of Health, and I say, hey, I got this back. Do you want to know? No. Maybe call the poison control.
They don't want to know?
No, they didn't even take my name or anything. I'm like, okay. No, they know me because I've been calling them and I've been writing to them. I have emails and I've talked to pretty much everybody in the county and the state, whatever.
So my jaw is just like hitting the floor. They didn't want to know?
They didn't want to know.
Okay.
They had advised me to call the poison control. Okay. Well, first the toxologist, okay? Toxologist said no. He said, I'm a toxologist. I can deal with the chemicals. I can't deal with what it's doing in your body. He said to call the Department of Health. I called the Department of Health. They said no. And I don't know why he told you to call us. But anyway, she said, try the poison control. Called the poison control. Well, call your local poison control.
You're calling to see what your options are. Is that correct?
Like what I do next.
Yes.
Well, I'm calling to let them know what the results are. Because I've already known I'm going to the doctor. I'm going to see somebody. But everybody I've talked to along the way, I've said, what do we do then?
Snorting Frenchie walking by. Hey, Tom.
So.
But they didn't want to say, okay, hey, name and number, we need to report this.
Nothing. They sent me to the Pittsburgh Poison Control. Nothing. So then after the Pittsburgh Control, then I went to the CDC thinking they're going to want to know. They didn't want to know either.
So I'll get back to right where you are, but you are aware that the CDC workers that came here got sick, right?
I am, yes.
Yes. So when they came here and they were handing out pamphlets door to door and doing health checks, hey, how are you?
Telling us the water and the air is fine.
Yes. Their workers were staying, I believe it was reported 30 miles out of town in a hotel. And when they would come to town, they would get ill. They reported, I believe, this is a guess, I think it were 11 workers and 6 or 7 of them said that they got ill when they were in town. And it wasn't reported because when they would leave town and go to the hotel, they started to feel better. Shouldn't that be reported by the CDC?
And were they wearing protective? Were they wearing anything protective? I've only ever seen people wearing, all the videos that I've gone back and looked at, they're wearing paper masks. Mm-hmm. And we all know paper masks aren't going to do anything.
Yeah.
So did their agency send them out there without letting them know?
Well, that would be bad PR for one thing, for the CDC, for Norfolk Southern, for the EPA, when they tell us the water and the soil is safe, and then you have these people walking around with protective protective equipment, and they're knocking on people's doors. That wouldn't look good for one thing. So
well, we've had our water tested. I went over to New Waterford and I was turned away because I was not in that area. So we had our water tested by a local company that we trust, and they sent it out to a lab in New Brighton. It came back with things in it. We're not sure what it is, but it came back with something in it. We have a shallow well, 25 feet. So my point here is then they sent people out. The Department of Health sent people out to test our water and to test our air, but none of them had any protection on. And I advised them when they called to make to come in. I said, make sure you're prepared because there's toxins or whatever in my house, and they didn't they didn't wear anything.
Yeah, there's the crazy lady saying there's toxins in the house, probably. Yeah.
Meanwhile, I have blisters in my mouth. I've had headaches. I've been in the bathroom more times than I want to tell you, and they're not doing anything to protect them. There were 2 young girls. I told my husband, that's not right, And we even advised him, do you want to stop, go to your car, get some masks? No. So they weren't even advised.
Yeah. So I want to talk a bit about a well, because I called somebody that was in a different part of the country and they lived in the city. And when I said well, she was almost thinking that, what are you talking about? She was thinking like where in the old days you'd have something like a wishing well and you put a bucket down and get water. People that have wells, you wouldn't notice that it's any different in their home than somebody had city water. It's a well that goes into the ground and then it pumps water into your home. So you don't really see a well out there. So we had our well tested too, but unfortunately that was before all the chemicals were released that were on the train. Remember, Norfolk Southern was rolling them out really slow. I think yours was more extensive. Before, because we had our well tested, the EPA now, we had it independently tested, they now refuse to test our well. The EPA is slowly working their way out, testing wells around here. But they said, well, you already tested yours, so, and my wife has almost cried and begged on the phone to put us on the list, but they will not test our well. In fact, our J.D. Vance, our Ohio senator, they turned him down. He said, hey, we want the Chai's wells tested, and they turned him down. Also, when you mentioned chemicals in your wells, there are low-level accepted levels of certain chemicals only because America, unless you live somewhere way off the grid in Montana up in the mountains, there may be some low-level plastics and things in everybody's wells. And a lot of that stuff we are seeing in acceptable levels. And that's pretty much anywhere in the United States you'll find that. But you're not supposed to see the vinyl chlorides and the ethylene glycols and things like that.
It is an older house. The house was built in like the '05, you know. And so, you know, it's older now. It has a shallow well because my husband says there's a...
You mean 1905 or
yes,
2000?
1905.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, this has been in the family for a long time.
That's cool.
Originally they had a deeper well, but it wasn't good. So, and there's a plate of something. See, I'm lose my train of thought. They can't get down to it or to go down. So it's basically spring water. The best water you would ever want.
Awesome.
Like,
I loved it here.
I remember just being able to go and get a cup of water out of the thing, and my mother-in-law, she would babysit the kids, and she would wash their coats and stuff, and their coats would be so soft and they smell so good, and she wouldn't do anything different than I did, but just the water was just so much better.
When friends would come to visit across the country and stay here, they talk about our water all the time because it tasted so good. Yeah,
so you could just get right out of the sink. So, you know, but
okay. So you tested positive for vinyl chloride. House hasn't been cleaned professionally.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you this, but I don't even expect you to know the answer. Now what?
I wish I knew.
Yeah. But, I mean, you're in a hotel, you don't know what, you know.
We just finished the farm. Like, we took the farm from, we bought it from the siblings because everybody's further away. He has a family of 9, and so we've had it for like 5 years, and slowly he has gone over and gutted it, and because we lived by your office practice, and that's the home we grew up. My children grew up in, and so it was hard leaving there. But he promised me he'd give me a dishwasher, take my swimming pool. He'd make it, you know, our forever home. I was leery, but then when I got there, I have never been this content in a home. And now we don't even know if we could be in it.
Yeah, he's got his garage that he built.
Oh,
so yeah.
Thanks to my son-in-law, it keeps getting bigger and bigger. But anyway, yes, when we sold the house in Darlington, he put the money into the garage because kind of has a tractor like yours out there. But anyway,
so much fun. That's a guy right there.
So anyway, yeah, and you know, he's retired. I'm soon to be retired. I only have, you know, less than a half a year, and we don't know where we stand. Yeah. I told you we've been at a hotel. We stopped home. We have cats. We didn't take our cats with us. Can't take them to the hotel. We stopped home to feed them and went into the house, had to get some clothes. And on my drive here, my lips are burning and my vision is blurry.
But you're back in East Palestine or near the crash.
Yeah, and back in the house, I could barely read the GPS to get here.
Yeah, every year my friend brings his son from New York, and they stay here, and this year they don't want to come. So it's a tradition. We go, it's a fishing season opens, and his son grew up in the city of New York, and he fell in love. So this is like heaven. Oh, he fell in love with fishing, and so they don't want to come this year because of this. So what, as we end here, what are your mix of emotions from maybe a little vindication, fear? Tell me a little bit about how you feel that test coming back positive maybe some people that thought you were just crazy, or maybe even the people that the help center, whatever you want to talk about. But how does that test coming back positive for vinyl chloride make you feel?
Well, kind of in the back of my mind, I knew because of all the symptoms, and I was preparing myself for that. Now my husband wasn't tested, but we slept right next to each other. We'd been together, when we're not working, work together. So he is probably also has the same exposure. But I don't know, you get to the point where you work hard to get to your retirement, and I don't know, like, how many years do we have? Like, is it, I don't like to say this, but is it like 5 years? How long does this chemical stay in you? If I had more answers, but I did went through the fear, and then I got angry because I'm like, this didn't have to happen, or if it did happen, steps could have been taken to protect us, and we weren't protected.
Yeah, get us out of here.
Yeah, like, one mouth isn't anything when it's a disaster. You look at all of the other things that have happened. They take you 20, 50 miles away. We're a mile away.
Yeah.
And nobody thought to come and tell us to go,
And what about the people that they let back 2 days later that are right at the crash site? And lastly, I'm going to say, you made me tear up.
I'm sorry.
No, I think this is important to know. When we've gotten a half truth from the CDC, and is there really a difference between a half truth and a lie? I had a discussion with this with somebody recently. If I see a life-threatening condition on a person's films or tests, and they ask me if there's anything life-threatening on there, and I lie to them and say, no, there isn't. Is there a difference between me seeing a life-threatening problem on a person's tests and not telling them? I'm not so sure. So the CDC can claim maybe they're not really lying to us, but I've heard many times them saying, and possibly the EPA has said this as well, that don't even worry about getting vinyl chloride tested because it's going to be out of your system right away, and even if you were exposed, it's not going to show up. When I talked, and I'm not a toxicologist, and most doctors aren't. We don't deal with these chemicals on a regular basis. So, we're learning on the fly just as everybody else is. So when I talked to one of the doctors at Quest, I told him that, and he said, that's not true. He said, that's true for the blood test, which shows acute exposure. He said, the urine test for vinyl chloride is much different. He said, that is for chronic exposure. Whereas you can be negative, have a negative urine test initially, and chronic exposure in your home or in your surroundings over a period of time as it builds up in your body. Let's say there's vinyl chloride on your walls, in your heating ducts and other areas, or in your yard. Chronic exposure to that will build up in your body, and then you start peeing it out, and then it shows. And that may be why the burn was February 6th. Was it February 6th?
Yes.
Am I thinking right? And
Yes.
then you March 9th. So you had over 4 weeks of exposure in your home potentially. And that may be too, a lot of the patients that I sent in the beginning that were negative, and I'm like, oh, this is great. They may not have had the time to be exposed in their homes or their surroundings long enough for it to even show up in their urine. So the CDC knows that. That's what they do. And they don't tell us that. They discourage us from getting the testing, which I would think that's criminal. I'm just fed up with everything going on here. So, all right, go ahead.
Well, if the CDC is on top of everything, why when I called, they didn't even care?
Yeah.
And, maybe it's the person that answered the phone. Maybe they should have taken it a step higher. I don't know. But if I were alerted to somebody somewhere tested positive, which that may not even be what I'm reacting to. I may be reacting to the 10 other chemicals that were mixed together.
Yeah, what we're not testing for.
True. I am latex allergic. So anything adhesive or latex, which I guess there's PVC, they use vinyl chloride in PVC pipe and things like that. I'm extremely allergic to latex. So if there was anything in there, you know, that could be it too. So maybe I'm reacting to the 5 or 10 other chemicals that we weren't told that were out there.
Yeah. I think there was a guy from Purdue that came, a professor, and I don't think they know what to test for, because as those chemicals reacted with each other, they created hundreds of other chemicals. And that's why he's saying throw the kitchen sink at it, but nobody's doing that from our government. Well, Shirley, that was awesome. I know it's emotional, and you have a doctor's appointment to go to.
I do.
Any last words? And you're going to live a long time. You're going to look back at this. You might not laugh, and maybe we'll all laugh. And we're hoping everything's going to be safe, but you're going to live a long time.
Good.
Any last words?
You know, if in doubt, go away for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
Get yourself out of the situation. There's no reason to be where you feel there's any danger.
That's,
you know,
absolutely.
And nobody can take care of your health but you. Nobody's going to be an advocate for your own health but you. Maybe your doctor. But other than that.
And you also said, I know you gave some advice. You said if you can, if somehow you can afford it or the insurance pays, you're advising people to get tested. Absolutely. In this area.
Absolutely.
So am I. And honestly, the government should be testing this every 3 months. If this is an acute exposure thing where it builds up over time, we can send $100 billion to Ukraine, and we can't help these citizens here.
And then what breaks your heart is you see those babies that have rashes, and I mean, we could just go on, and we could talk about all the things that, and people have, you know, we talk about all the bad things, but look at all the good that people have rallied around. And, you know, you saw that this toy thing donated all these toys for the kids for Easter and things like that. You know, people are rallying around, you know, but I don't know. It's just the people that we're looking to, our government, we're not seeing it. So
yeah, I agree.